The world ended on a Tuesday, but Monday night was nothing short of heaven. William traced the delicate curve of Leo's spine, his broad, calloused hand a stark contrast against the Omega's pale, sweat-slicked skin. The air in their small city apartment was thick with the intoxicating, sweet scent of jasmine and honey, Leo's natural pheromones, now completely saturated with William's heavy, protective scent of cedarwood and rain. "You're purring," Leo whispered, his voice hoarse, a sleepy smile playing on his lips as he shifted closer to William's chest. William chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound that vibrated in his chest. "I can't help it. You're finally mine." He leaned down, pressing a tender kiss to the angry, red bite mark resting perfectly over Leo's scent gland on his neck. The mating mark. It pulsed with their fresh bond, tying their souls, their instincts, and their lives together permanently. Leo sighed happily, tangling his fingers in William's dark hair. "Forever, Will. Promise me." "I promise you, Leo. Nothing is ever going to take you away from me." It was a promise William would spend the next 5 months bleeding to keep. The sirens started screaming before dawn. William woke up to the sound of breaking glass and frantic, blood-curdling screams echoing from the street below. He threw back the covers, his alpha instincts flaring into high alert. He rushed to the window. The streets, normally quiet at 5 a.m., were a war zone. People were sprinting in sheer terror, chased by things. Neighbors, covered in blood, tearing into each other with animalistic ferocity. "Will, what's going on?" Leo sat up, clutching the sheets to his chest, eyes wide with sudden panic. "Leo, get dressed. Right now. Put on your thickest clothes and your boots." William barked, already pulling on his combat boots and grabbing the baseball bat from the closet. "We have to leave. Now." They barely made it out of the apartment building. The stairwells were clogged with terrified residents and the groaning, blood-soaked infected. William swung the bat, shattering the skull of a man who lunged at Leo. Blood splattered across the walls. "Keep behind me," William yelled over the deafening chaos. They burst into the alleyway, sprinting toward William's truck. But the panic of the city had reached a boiling point. A massive crowd of terrified citizens surged down the street, fleeing a horde of the infected. "Hold my hand. Don't let go," William roared, gripping Leo's slender fingers like a vice. But a speeding, out-of-control sedan careened into the alley, smashing into a dumpster. The explosion of debris and the sudden stampede of the crowd acted like a wedge. A heavy man slammed into Leo, ripping his hand from William's grasp. "William!" Leo screamed, stumbling backward into the crushing wave of bodies. "Leo!" William violently shoved people aside, desperately trying to reach his mate. But the crowd was a tidal wave. The infected crashed into the back of the mob, and the stampede intensified. Through the sea of panicked faces, William caught one last glimpse of Leo's terrified, tear-streaked face before a thick plume of smoke from the crashed car obscured him completely. 5 months later. "You're going out again, Will. It's getting dark." William loaded the last crate of canned peaches into the back of his heavily modified, armored SUV. He slammed the trunk shut and looked over his shoulder at Sarah. She was a tall, scarred alpha who, along with her beta husband Marcus, lived in the sprawling mansion William had claimed. "I saw a wholesale warehouse about 20 miles out on Highway 9, William said, his voice flat, devoid of the warmth it held 5 months ago. "It looked untouched." "Well," Marcus sighed, wiping engine grease from his hands as he walked up the driveway. "We have enough supplies in this house to last us a decade. You've raided every pharmacy, hardware store, and supermarket in a 50-mile radius. We have solar power, rain catchers, and enough perimeter traps to turn 100 rotters into minced meat. The poisoned spike pits you dug yesterday are overkill. You don't need to go out." "I'm not going out for the supplies, Marcus," William said coldly, checking the magazine of his customized Arkansas 15. He holstered a heavy machete to his thigh. Sarah placed a gentle hand on her husband's arm, shaking her head. She looked at William with deep pity. "You're still looking for him." William's jaw clenched. The bond mark on his own neck ached with a hollow, agonizing emptiness. For 5 months, he had torn the state apart. He had fought through hordes, cleared out entire towns, and built a fortress in the woods, all hoping that one day he would bring Leo to a safe home. "He's alive," William growled, his alpha presence flaring, heavy and suffocating. "I can feel it, faintly, but he's there. I'm not stopping until I find him." He climbed into the SUV, firing up the roaring engine, and left the iron gates of the mansion behind. The raid was a success, functionally speaking. The back of the SUV was weighed down with medical supplies, baby food. He didn't know why he grabbed it, just that it felt like a necessity, and heavy-duty winter gear. But William's heart remained a block of ice. It was near midnight. The moon was a pale sliver in the dark sky, casting long, eerie shadows across the abandoned country road leading back to his secluded town. William drove with the headlights dimmed, his tired eyes scanning the tree line. Thump. He slammed on the brakes. The SUV skidded to a halt on the cracked asphalt. Up ahead, near the base of a massive, gnarled oak tree, lay a huddled figure. It was small, too small to be a threat. William narrowed his eyes. Through the night vision goggles resting on his dash, he saw 3 rotters dragging their rotting feet across the field, heading straight for the sleeping figure. The wind shifted, blowing through the open window of the SUV. William froze. Beneath the stench of blood, dirt, and decay, a scent hit his nose. It was incredibly faint, buried under layers of grime and fear, but it hit William's brain like a lightning bolt. Jasmine, honey, and cedarwood. Leo. William didn't even turn off the engine. He kicked the door open, drawing his machete in one fluid motion. He moved with terrifying, blinding speed, his alpha instincts erupting into a furious, protective rage. The first rotter, a decaying woman with half her jaw missing, lunged toward the huddled figure. William was there in a heartbeat. He swung the machete with brutal force, severing the rotter's head from its shoulders in a spray of black blood. The second and third zombies hissed, turning their attention to him. William didn't flinch. He kicked the second one in the chest, sending it tumbling backward, and drove his blade straight through the roof of the third one's mouth, piercing its brain. He yanked the blade free, spun around, and decapitated the final zombie as it tried to stand. The area fell silent, save for the idling of the SUV. Breathing heavily, William dropped the machete. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. He slowly turned to the figure curled up in the dirt. The Omega was wearing a filthy, oversized coat. He was painfully thin, his cheeks hollow, shivering in the cold night air. His face was covered in soot and mud, but as William dropped to his knees, his heart stopped in his chest. It was him. It was his beautiful Leo. Leo. William choked out, his voice breaking. He reached out with a trembling hand, gently brushing the matted hair away from the Omega's face. Leo whimpered in his sleep, instinctively curling tighter into a ball, trying to protect his front. As he shifted, the oversized coat fell open. William gasped, all the air rushing out of his lungs. Beneath the layers of filthy clothes, Leo's stomach was swollen, round, and heavy. He was heavily pregnant. 5 months, exactly. The realization hit William like a freight train. The sweet scent of jasmine and honey was laced with the undeniable, milky scent of a pup. His pup. Leo had been carrying their child out here in the wasteland, alone, starving, and terrified for 5 agonizing months. Tears, hot and fast, spilled down the hardened alpha's cheeks. Oh, God, Leo, my baby, my brave, beautiful boy, William sobbed quietly, shedding his heavy tactical jacket. He carefully, gently wrapped it around Leo's shivering form. At the touch, Leo's eyes fluttered open. They were glassy, unfocused, filled with the primal terror of a hunted animal. He weakly tried to scramble backward, a pathetic, fearful sound escaping his chapped lips. No. Please, don't. Hey, shish, William cooed, deliberately releasing calming, soothing cedarwood pheromones. He pulled the collar of his shirt down, exposing his scent gland to his mate. It's me. Look at me, sweetheart. It's William. I've got you. I've got you. Leo froze. His dull eyes slowly traveled up William's chest, finally locking onto his face. The Omega's nostrils flared, taking in the heavy, familiar scent of his alpha. A choked gasp escaped Leo. His trembling hands reached up, his filthy fingers gently tracing the familiar lines of William's face, as if checking if he was a hallucination. Will. Leo's voice was a barely audible, broken whisper. I'm here, William wept, gathering the fragile, pregnant Omega into his massive arms, holding him as gently as spun glass. He buried his face in Leo's dirty neck, right over his mating mark. I'm so sorry it took me so long. I'm so sorry, baby. I've got you now. Nobody is ever going to hurt you or our pup again. I swear to God, I have you. Leo let out a gut-wrenching sob, burying his face in William's chest, his weak fingers clutching the alpha's shirt like a lifeline. I kept them safe, Will. I kept our baby safe. I know, William whispered fiercely, kissing the top of Leo's head as he scooped him up into his arms, carrying him toward the warmth of the SUV. I know you did. Now it's my turn. We're going home. The heavy iron gates of the mansion groaned open as William's SUV tore up the gravel driveway, finally coming to a halt near the grand entrance. The front doors flew open immediately. Sarah and Marcus rushed out, weapons drawn, but they froze when William stepped out of the driver's side. William didn't look like the cold, hardened alpha they had known for the past 5 months. He looked frantic, alive, and entirely desperate. He hurried to the passenger side, opening the door to gently scoop up a bundled, fragile figure in his oversized tactical jacket. Will? Sarah asked, lowering her rifle. Is that? It's him. It's Leo, William choked out, practically sprinting up the steps with his mate secured in his arms. Marcus, heat up some water and get some broth on the stove. Nothing heavy, his stomach won't handle it. Sarah, get the trauma kit and bring it to my room. Now. As William carried him through the grand foyer, Leo peeked out from beneath the heavy jacket. His dull, exhausted eyes widened at the sight of the glowing chandeliers, the plush carpets, and the sheer, impossible safety of it all. It felt like a dream, a cruel hallucination his dying mind had conjured before the cold took him. Will? Leo whispered, his voice raspy. Is this real? It's real, baby. It's our home, William murmured, pressing his lips to Leo's dirt-streaked forehead. He carried the Omega up the sweeping staircase and down a long hall, finally kicking open the double doors to the master bedroom. He set Leo down on the edge of the massive, king-sized bed with agonizing care. The mattress dipped under their weight as William knelt before him, unlacing Leo's ragged, duct-taped sneakers. Sarah slipped into the room, setting a medical kit on the nightstand. She took one look at the way the oversized coat fell open, revealing the unmistakable swell of Leo's 5-month pregnant belly, and gasped. She covered her mouth, tears springing to her eyes, before silently backing out of the room to give them privacy. Let's get you clean, sweetheart, William said softly, guiding Leo into the adjoining master bathroom. The room was warm, filled with steam as William turned on the large soaking tub, testing the water temperature with his wrist. Leo stood shivering in the center of the room, his hands protectively cradling his stomach. William approached him slowly, radiating calm, cedarwood pheromones. Can I take these off you? Leo nodded, fresh tears silently tracking through the grime on his cheeks. With trembling hands, William peeled away the filthy layers. First the heavy coat, then a ruined sweater, and finally a tattered, blood-stained undershirt. When Leo stood entirely bare, William had to bite the inside of his cheek so hard he tasted blood. Leo was a roadmap of suffering. His collarbones jutted out sharply, and his ribs were easily countable beneath his pale skin. Bruises in varying shades of purple and yellow littered his arms and thighs, alongside dozens of shallow scratches and healing scabs. But the most prominent feature was his swollen belly, tight and round, carrying the only piece of hope Leo had clung to. Oh, my brave boy, William whispered, his voice cracking. He gently lifted Leo into the warm water. Leo let out a long, shuddering sigh as the heat enveloped his freezing, aching muscles. It's so warm. I forgot what warm felt like, Will. William grabbed a soft sponge and a bar of gentle, unscented soap. He knelt beside the tub, carefully washing away the mud, the soot, and the scent of death. I'll never let you be cold again, Leo. I swear it on my life. He washed Leo's matted hair, massaging his scalp until the Omega melted into his touch, a soft, broken purr finally vibrating in his throat. When the water turned murky, William drained it, rinsed him with clean, warm water, and wrapped him in a massive, fluffy towel. After dressing Leo in one of his own softest, oversized T-shirts, which draped perfectly over the baby bump, William carried him back to the bed, tucking him beneath thick down comforters. Marcus knocked gently, stepping in just long enough to leave a tray with a steaming bowl of chicken broth and a glass of warm milk on the bedside table. Here, sit up for me, William coaxed, propping pillows behind Leo's back. He picked up the spoon, blowing on the broth before offering it to his mate. Slowly, baby. Don't make yourself sick. Leo swallowed the warm liquid, his eyes closing in pure bliss. It tastes incredible. He ate half the bowl before gently pushing William's hand away, leaning his heavy head against the alpha's shoulder. I'm full. I just want you to hold me. William moved the tray aside and climbed into the bed, pulling Leo flush against his chest. He wrapped his arms securely around the Omega, resting his large hand directly over Leo's swollen stomach. He could feel the faint, fluttering movements of their pup inside. How did you do it, Leo? William asked, his voice thick with emotion. When we got separated, I looked everywhere. I cleared the city block by block. I thought I lost you. Leo shuddered, burying his face into the crook of William's neck, seeking the comfort of his scent gland. When that car crashed and the crowd pushed me back, I couldn't breathe, Leo began, his voice a trembling whisper. I got pushed down an alleyway. By the time I fought my way back to the street, you were gone. The infected were everywhere. William tightened his grip. Where did you go? I ran. I broke into an abandoned hardware store and hid in the air vents for the first week, Leo confessed, his fingers twisting into William's shirt. I drank from the toilet tank when I got thirsty. I was so scared, Will. But then, the sickness started. Leo placed his hand over William's, interlacing their fingers across his bump. I kept throwing up. I thought I had caught a disease or eaten something toxic. I was so weak, Leo cried softly. But then, a month later, I felt a flutter. And I realized my heat just before the world ended, it gave me a piece of you. William kissed the top of Leo's head, his own tears dampening the Omega's hair. You realized you were carrying. It was the only thing that kept me moving, Leo sobbed, letting out the anguish he had bottled up for half a year. Knowing I had our pup, I started moving out of the city at night. I covered myself in mud and rotten trash so the infected couldn't smell my pheromones. I slept in trees. I ate whatever I could find, stale crackers, half-rotten fruit, sometimes just weeds I hoped weren't poisonous. I was so terrified I was hurting the baby because I couldn't find enough food. You didn't, William reassured him fiercely, smoothing his hand over the bump. You kept them safe. You kept both of you alive. You are the strongest person I have ever known, Leo. Every night, I would hold my stomach and talk to the baby, Leo whimpered, looking up into William's tear-filled eyes. I told them about their alpha father. How strong you are. How warm you are. I told them you were looking for us. William couldn't hold back the sob that tore from his chest. He pressed his forehead against Leo's, their tears mingling. I was. Every single day, William vowed, his voice raw. I built this place for you. We have a massive greenhouse. We have solar power, clean water, enough food to last us years. We have medicine, Leo. Everything I did, every supply I took, it was to build a kingdom for you to come home to. Leo shifted slightly, turning so his back was against William's chest, allowing the alpha to fully wrap around him. William's large hand cradled the baby bump from behind, his thumb gently stroking the taut skin beneath the shirt. As if sensing the safety of its father's touch, the pup gave a strong, undeniable kick against William's palm. William gasped, his breath hitching. Did you feel that? Leo let out a wet, genuine laugh, the first time William had heard the sound in 5 months. I feel it all the time now. They're strong. Just like you. No, William whispered reverently, kissing the back of Leo's neck, right over the faded mating mark he would soon renew. They're resilient. Just like their mother. The room grew quiet, save for the rhythmic, soothing sound of the rain beginning to patter against the reinforced window panes. Inside, the fire crackled warmly. Rest now, my love, William murmured, pulling the heavy blankets up to Leo's shoulders. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to hide. I've got the watch from now on. Leo closed his eyes, completely enveloped in the scent of cedarwood and unquestionable safety. For the first time since the world ended, the Omega let down his guard, finally surrendering to a deep, dreamless sleep in the arms of his alpha. A month passed within the high stone walls of the mansion, and physically, Leo was transforming. Thanks to Marcus's hearty cooking and the prenatal vitamins William had scavenged, the sickly, hollowed-out boy was gone. Leo's cheeks had filled out with a healthy flush, his hair was soft and glossy again, and his belly was beautifully round, carrying their 6-month-old pup. But trauma doesn't heal as fast as the body. Leo sat in the greenhouse, surrounded by blooming tomato plants, his hands resting on his heavy stomach. He wore one of William's soft flannel shirts, the sleeves rolled up, revealing the fading, jagged scars on his forearms, reminders of his 5 months in hell. He sighed, feeling a familiar, heavy weight in his chest. He felt fragile. In a world of monsters and survival, he felt like a glass ornament sitting on a shelf, carefully protected but entirely useless. The roar of the armored SUV's engine at the front gates pulled him from his thoughts. William was back from his perimeter patrol. Leo smiled, pushing himself up awkwardly. He waddled out of the greenhouse and across the manicured lawn, eager to see his alpha. But as the heavy iron gates swung shut, Leo stopped in his tracks. William and Marcus hadn't come back alone. 3 strangers climbed out of the back of the SUV. 2 of them, a gruff-looking beta woman and an older alpha man, looked exhausted and battered. But the third was an Omega. He was tall, lithe, and undeniably striking. He wore tight, practical tactical gear, twin knives strapped to his thighs, and a shotgun slung effortlessly over his shoulder. Despite the dirt on his face, he moved with the deadly, confident grace of someone who had thrived in the apocalypse, not just survived it. "Get them inside, Sarah," William ordered, his voice carrying its usual authoritative boom. "Marcus, take their weapons. They can have them back once they've earned their keep." The new Omega laughed, a bright, chiming sound, and playfully bumped his shoulder against William's massive bicep. "Ah, come on, Will. After how we fought back to back at the gas station, you know I've got your 6. William stepped back, his expression neutral but professional. "Rules are rules, Julian." Inside, Leo stood frozen by the greenhouse doors. He watched Julian, this fierce, capable, beautiful Omega, smile up at his mate. Suddenly, Leo became hyper-aware of his own appearance. He was wearing oversized, clunky boots, his mate's baggy clothes, and his body was heavy and cumbersome. His scent, usually a sweet jasmine and honey, soured slightly with a sudden, sharp spike of anxiety and deep-seated inadequacy. William's head snapped toward the greenhouse. An alpha's nose was perfectly tuned to his mate's distress. His hard eyes instantly softened, and he jogged over, leaving the newcomers on the driveway. "Leo, baby, what's wrong? Why are you out in the cold?" William asked, his hands immediately cupping Leo's face, his thumbs brushing over his cheeks. He released a wave of calming cedarwood pheromones. "I'm fine," Leo lied, his voice small. He looked over William's shoulder. Julian was watching them, his head tilted, eyes lingering on Leo's pregnant belly with a look Leo couldn't quite read. "Who are they?" "Survivors," William said, his brow furrowing as he noticed Leo avoiding his gaze. "A horde had them pinned down near the interstate. We cleared it out and brought them back. They'll help Marcus with the perimeter maintenance." "But what's wrong? Your scent, you smell upset." "It's nothing, Will. I'm just tired," Leo whispered, pulling back slightly. "I'm going to go lie down." That evening, the grand dining room felt painfully crowded. Sarah had prepared a massive venison stew, and the new arrivals ate like they hadn't seen hot food in weeks. "So," Julian said, wiping his mouth and leaning back in his chair, his eyes fixed on William at the head of the table. "You built this place. Traps, solar, greenhouse, everything." "Mostly," William replied flatly, cutting a soft piece of bread and placing it on Leo's plate. "Eat, sweetheart. You've barely touched your food." Leo picked at his stew, keeping his eyes glued to the tablecloth. "It's incredible," Julian continued, completely unfazed by William's cold demeanor. "Out there, it's every man for himself. I've had to gut 3 alphas just to keep them off me. You have to be ruthless to survive now. No room for dead weight." The words, "dead weight," echoed in Leo's mind like a gunshot. He felt a hot, prickling sensation behind his eyes. "I remember back at the gas station today," Julian went on, leaning over the table, his scent, a sharp, alluring spice, filling the room. "When that rotter almost got Marcus, you and I synced up perfectly, Will. I took the legs, you took the head. It was like a dance. We make a good team." Leo's breath hitched. He looked at Julian's smooth, unscarred arms, then down at his own trembling hands. He's right, Leo thought, a suffocating wave of insecurity crashing over him. Julian is strong. He can fight. He can protect William. What can I do? I just sit here, eat his food, and need to be protected. I'm useless. Excuse me, Leo choked out abruptly. The scrape of his chair against the hardwood floor silenced the room. "Leo." William stood up immediately, his chair tumbling backward. I need to rest. I don't feel well, Leo stammered, not looking at anyone as he turned and practically fled the dining room as fast as his swollen body would allow. The room was dead silent. William turned slowly, his eyes locking onto Julian. The Alpha's presence flared, dark, heavy, and violently protective. The air in the room grew so thick it was hard to breathe. The new Alpha and Beta at the table shrunk back in their chairs, terrified. "Do not ever call me, again," William snarled, his voice a low, guttural warning. "My name is William, and if you ever speak of dead weight in my house again, I will throw you to the rotters myself. You are here on my mercy. Do not test it." William didn't wait for a response. He turned and sprinted up the stairs after his mate. William found Leo in their master bathroom. The Omega was sitting on the cold tile floor, backed into the corner between the wall and the bathtub, his knees pulled up as close to his chest as his belly would allow. He was sobbing, his small frame shaking with the force of his tears. "Leo." William dropped to his knees, sliding across the tiles. "Baby, please, what is it? Are you hurt? Is it the pup?" "No," Leo cried, pressing his hands over his face. "No, it's me. It's just me." William gently but firmly grabbed Leo's wrists, pulling his hands away from his tear-streaked face. "Talk to me. Please, Leo. You're breaking my heart. What happened?" "He's right," Leo hiccuped, his scent entirely sour with grief and self-loathing. "Julian is right, William. You need someone like him. You need a partner. Someone who can fight by your side, someone who isn't this." Leo gestured wildly to his own body. "Look at me. I'm covered in scars. I'm slow. I can't even run if the walls get breached. I spent 5 months hiding in the dirt while you became a warrior. I'm just a burden. I'm dead weight, Will. You're going to realize it eventually, and you're going to leave me for someone who can actually survive in this world." William stared at him, his heart shattering into a million pieces. He had no idea his mate was carrying this agonizing poison inside him. "Leo," William breathed, his voice cracking. He didn't offer platitudes. Instead, he moved forward, completely crowding Leo into the corner, wrapping his massive arms around the trembling Omega and pulling him flush against his chest. "Let me go," Leo sobbed, weakly pushing against William's broad shoulders. "You shouldn't be with me. I'm useless." "Stop it," William commanded, his voice rumbling with an Alpha's absolute authority, but laced with profound, desperate love. He grabbed Leo's chin, forcing the crying Omega to look him in the eyes. William's own eyes were shining with unshed tears. "Listen to me, and listen to me very carefully," William said, his voice a fierce, steady whisper. "I don't give a damn about Julian. I don't care about his knives, his guns, or how many rotters he's killed. Do you know why?" Leo whimpered, shaking his head. "Because surviving isn't just about killing," William said, resting his forehead against Leo's. "It's about having a reason to live. For 5 months, I was a machine, Leo. I killed, I scavenged, I built, but I was dead inside. I had no soul. I built this entire fortress for one reason, and one reason only, you." William moved his hand, gently tracing the jagged scars on Leo's forearm. "You think these make you ugly?" William asked softly, pressing a reverent kiss to the scarred skin. "These scars show me that you fought the literal end of the world to protect our child. You survived starvation, freezing cold, and monsters, completely alone. Julian had guns. You had nothing but your love for our pup. You are the bravest, strongest person I have ever met." Leo's sobs began to quiet, his wide, teary eyes locked on William's earnest face. "You are not a burden, Leo. You are my anchor," William vowed, shifting his hand to rest firmly on Leo's rounded stomach. The pup kicked in response, right against William's palm. "Without you, this mansion is just a tomb. Without you, I'm just a monster out in the wasteland. You give me my humanity. You are my mate. My only mate. Forever. Will." Leo whispered, his lower lip trembling as the dark clouds of his insecurity began to fracture under the blinding light of William's devotion. "I love your body," William murmured, trailing his lips down Leo's jawline, stopping right over the mating mark on his neck. He gently nipped at it, making Leo gasp and instinctively tilt his head, exposing his throat. "I love your scars. I love the life you're growing inside you. You are perfect to me." Leo let out a long, shuddering sigh, his sweet jasmine scent finally returning, pushing away the sourness of his fear. He wrapped his arms tightly around William's neck, burying his face in his shoulder. "I was so scared, Will," Leo confessed, his voice muffled. "I was so jealous. I thought you'd look at him and realize you made a mistake with me." "Never," William swore, pulling Leo tightly against him, lifting them both off the cold floor. He carried Leo back into the bedroom, laying him gently on the plush mattress. He crawled in next to him, wrapping around him like a protective shield. "I only have eyes for you. Tomorrow, I'll make sure Julian understands his place in this house. But right now, I just want to hold my world." Leo snuggled backward against William's chest, feeling the alpha's strong heartbeat against his back. The insecurities that had tormented him for weeks were gone, washed away by the absolute certainty of his alpha's love. "I love you, Will," Leo whispered into the dark room, his hand resting over William's hand on his belly. "I love you more, my brave boy," William replied, kissing his shoulder. "Always." The morning sun filtered through the heavy velvet curtains, casting a warm, golden glow over the master bedroom. William woke first, as he always did. His heavy arm was still wrapped possessively around Leo's waist, his hand resting securely over the prominent swell of his mate's belly. Leo was fast asleep, his breathing soft and even, his scent a pure, untainted blend of jasmine and honey. The sour notes of yesterday's fear were completely gone. William carefully pressed a kiss to the back of Leo's neck, right over the mating mark, before slowly entangling himself from the sheets. He dressed quickly in his tactical pants and a tight black t-shirt, strapping his heavy hunting knife to his belt. His face hardened. He had a promise to keep. Downstairs, the mansion was already buzzing with quiet activity. Marcus was by the back door, checking the solar battery levels on a clipboard, while Sarah was at the stove, brewing a large pot of coffee. Sitting at the grand kitchen island, entirely too comfortable, was Julian. The new Omega was cleaning a pistol, his sleek tactical vest traded for a fitted tank top. He looked up, flashing a bright, confident smile as William walked in. "Morning, Alpha," Julian chimed, his tone laced with a playful edge. "Sleep well. I was hoping we could go over the perimeter patrol routes today. I noticed a few blind spots near the East Ridge." William didn't smile back. He didn't even acknowledge the greeting. He walked straight to the kitchen island, his heavy combat boots thudding against the hardwood. He stopped directly across from Julian, planting both hands flat on the marble countertop. The air in the kitchen instantly dropped 10 degrees. William deliberately released his pheromones, not the soothing cedarwood he used for Leo, but the suffocating, ozone-heavy scent of a dominant alpha asserting complete territorial control. Julian's smile faltered. His posture stiffened, his own natural instinct screaming at him to submit. Sarah and Marcus stopped what they were doing, exchanging a knowing glance, and quietly stepped back. "Let's get one thing straight, Julian." William's voice was a low, vibrating rumble that commanded absolute silence. "This is not a democracy. This is not a team where you get to call the shots. This is my house. I built it, I fortified it, and I allow you to sleep under its roof." Julian swallowed hard, his hands lowering the pistol. I was just trying to help, William. I know how to survive." "You know how to survive in the dirt," William corrected coldly. "But you don't know how to live in a pack. And right now, you are a guest. So hear this clearly, Leo is my mate. He is the heart of this sanctuary. He is carrying my pup, and he fought through hell for 5 months to protect it. He has more strength in his little finger than you have in your entire body." Julian's cheeks flushed, his eyes dropping to the marble counter. "If I ever hear you disrespect him again," William continued, leaning in closer, his eyes flashing with a dangerous, feral light. "If you ever imply he is a burden, or look at him with anything less than absolute respect, I will strip you of your weapons, open the front gates, and throw you back to the rotters. Am I understood?" "Understood," Julian whispered, his voice trembling slightly. He finally looked up, meeting William's hard gaze. I was out of line. I'm sorry. I'm just used to a different set of rules out there." "The rules out there are dead," William stated firmly, stepping back and letting the suffocating pressure of his pheromones dissipate. "In here, we protect our own." "William." The tense silence was shattered by a frantic voice. Leo was standing at the bottom of the grand staircase. He was clutching an old, static-filled walkie-talkie to his chest, his eyes wide with alarm. He was wearing his oversized boots and a thick sweater. William was across the room in a flash, his hands gently gripping Leo's shoulders. "Baby, what is it? Why are you out of bed?" "The perimeter alarms," Leo said breathlessly, holding up the radio. "The silent ones you wired to the master bedroom panel. The red lights on the Eastwood sector just lit up. All of them. Will, there's a breach." Marcus cursed under his breath, immediately dropping his clipboard and reaching for the assault rifle leaning against the wall. "That's the heavy timber side. We didn't set spike pits there, the terrain is too rough." "It's a migration herd," William realized, his tactical mind snapping into focus. "They must have caught the scent of the venison from last night's dinner." He turned to the kitchen. "Sarah, Marcus, Julian. Arm up. Heavy calibers and machetes. We hold them at the secondary iron fence. Do not let them reach the courtyard." Julian nodded sharply, grabbing his shotgun and racking it with practiced ease. William turned back to Leo, cupping his face. "Leo, I need you to go to the basement panic room. Lock the steel door." "No," Leo said firmly, his voice surprisingly steady. He grabbed William's wrist. "The panic room has the closed-circuit camera feeds and the main radio hub. You're going to be fighting in the woods. You won't be able to see the full perimeter. I will guide you. I'll be your eyes." William hesitated, his protective instinct screaming to lock his mate away in a padded box, but he saw the fierce, burning determination in Leo's eyes. Leo needed this. He needed to protect their home too. "Okay," William agreed, kissing Leo hard on the lips. "Lock the door behind you. Do not open it for anyone but me. If they breach the house, you stay completely quiet. I've got you, Alpha," Leo whispered. "Go." The morning air was freezing as William, Marcus, Sarah, and Julian sprinted across the dew-covered lawn, diving behind the thick concrete barricades William had erected near the East Woods. Through the dense trees, a nightmare was approaching. The snapping of branches and the low, guttural moans of the infected echoed like thunder. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of rotters were pushing through the tree line, their decaying bodies catching on thorns and branches, completely numb to the damage. "Open fire!" William roared. The silence of the woods was ripped apart by deafening gunfire. William fired with terrifying, machine-like precision. His Arkansas 15 barked rhythmically, and with every shot, a rotter dropped to the ground with a shattered skull. Next to him, Julian was a blur of motion, his shotgun blasting massive holes through the approaching front line. But there were too many. The sheer weight of the herd pushed forward, pressing against the secondary iron fence. The metal groaned under their collective force. Suddenly, the walkie-talkie clipped to William's vest crackled with static, followed by Leo's clear, urgent voice. "Will, camera 4. They're using the dead bodies to climb over the northeast corner of the fence. There's a breach on your left flank." "Julian, left flank," William bellowed, not taking his eyes off the center. Julian spun around, realizing a dozen rotters had just tumbled over the fence and were sprinting directly toward him and Sarah. He fired twice, dropping 2, but the others closed the distance too fast. "Julian, fall back," Leo's voice cracked over the radio. 3 behind the oak tree, move right." Julian dove to the right just as a massive rotter lunged at where he had been standing a split second before. Sarah stepped up, driving a machete into its skull. "I'm out," Julian yelled, his shotgun clicking empty. He drew his twin knives, slashing fiercely at a rotting woman who grabbed his tactical vest. William dropped his empty rifle. He didn't bother reloading. He drew his heavy machete and charged. To Julian, who had boasted about survival and ruthlessness, watching William fight was a revelation. William wasn't just surviving, he was a force of nature protecting his family. William moved with brutal, overwhelming power. He cleaved through the rotters like they were paper. He grabbed a massive, infected man by the throat, completely unbothered by its snapping jaws, and drove his knife through its chin and into its brain. He kicked the body away, spinning to decapitate another before it could reach Marcus. "Will, the fence is holding." Leo's voice came through, a beacon of hope in the chaos. "The noise from your guns is drawing the rest of the herd toward the reinforced traps in Sector 2. The spike pits are taking them down. Just hold your ground." "You heard him," William shouted, his face splattered with black blood, his chest heaving. "Hold the line." For another 20 agonizing minutes, they fought. The air grew thick with the smell of gunpowder and decay. But slowly, thanks to Leo's precise directions identifying exactly where the pressure points were, they managed to thin the herd. The remaining rotters blindly followed the noise toward the deep, poisoned spike pits William had dug weeks ago, plummeting to their permanent deaths. Finally, the woods fell silent, save for the heavy breathing of the 4 survivors. Julian dropped to his knees, his knives slipping from his hands. He was covered in sweat and gore, staring at the absolute carnage around them. He looked up at William. The Alpha stood tall, cleaning his machete on the grass, looking like a mythical god of war. "Sector clear," William grunted into his radio. "We're coming in." "I'm opening the inner doors," Leo replied, his voice thick with relief. "I love you." "I love you too, baby," William replied, a soft, incredibly tender smile breaking through his hardened expression. Julian slowly stood up. He walked over to William, his head bowed. Leo saved my life out there. If he hadn't seen them flanking on the cameras. "I told you," William said, clapping a heavy, surprisingly grounding hand on Julian's shoulder. "He's the strongest of us all. Let's go home." William didn't care that he was covered in dirt and dried blood. As soon as he stepped through the heavy steel doors of the basement, he saw Leo running down the hallway as fast as his swollen belly would allow. "Will!" Leo cried out, launching himself into William's arms. William caught him, lifting him off his feet and spinning him around, burying his face in the soft crook of Leo's neck. He inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with the sweet, grounding scent of jasmine and honey. It washed away the stench of death instantly. You're okay," Leo chanted, his hands frantically patting William's chest and arms, checking for bites or scratches. "I'm perfect," William chuckled, setting his mate down. "Thanks to you. You were incredible, Leo. You saved the perimeter. You kept us all alive." Leo flushed, a proud, beautiful smile spreading across his face. He looked over William's shoulder and saw Julian standing awkwardly by the staircase. Julian hesitated, then stepped forward. He completely dropped his arrogant facade. He looked at Leo, not with pity, and not with the condescension of a fighter looking at a civilian. He looked at him with profound respect. "Thank you, Leo," Julian said quietly, bowing his head slightly in a gesture of genuine submission and gratitude. "I would have been torn apart if you hadn't been watching the flank. I was wrong about you. I'm sorry." Leo's eyes softened. He rested a hand on his belly and nodded. "We protect each other here, Julian. That's how we survive. Go get cleaned up, Julian," William said, his tone no longer hostile, but accepting. Julian nodded and headed up the stairs. William turned back to Leo, sweeping him up into his arms, carrying him bridal style. "Will, I can walk." Leo laughed, wrapping his arms around William's neck. "And you're getting blood on my sweater." "I don't care," William smiled, pressing a kiss to Leo's nose as he carried him up the stairs toward their bathroom. "I have a sudden urge to spoil my incredibly smart, brave mate. I'm going to run you a bath, and then I am going to massage your feet until you fall asleep." "That sounds like heaven," Leo sighed, resting his head against William's broad chest. Later, as they lay together in the massive bed, the horrors of the outside world safely locked away behind steel and stone, William's large hand rested over Leo's bump. The pup was kicking rhythmically, incredibly active after the adrenaline of the morning. "They're going to be a fighter," William murmured, his thumb stroking Leo's skin. "No," Leo whispered softly, kissing William's jawline. "They're going to be a protector. Just like their father." William smiled in the dark, pulling his mate impossibly closer. The world outside was dead and broken, but in this room, holding his beautiful, pregnant Omega, William had everything he would ever need. 3 months had passed, blanketing the secluded mansion in a thick, pristine layer of white snow. The harsh winter made the world outside entirely silent, the freezing temperatures freezing the rotters in their tracks. But inside the walls of William and Leo's sanctuary, it was bursting with warmth and life. Leo was heavily, impossibly pregnant. At full term, his belly was a magnificent, tight sphere that made walking more of a monumental waddle. His nesting instincts had kicked into absolute overdrive the past week. The master bedroom was currently an ocean of blankets, pillows, and every single piece of clothing that smelled strongly of William's cedarwood scent. Will, my back," Leo whined softly, sitting in the center of the massive nest, looking incredibly flushed and thoroughly exhausted. He was wearing one of William's oversized Henley shirts, the buttons completely undone to make room for his stomach. "I've got you, sweetheart," William murmured. He was sitting right behind Leo, his large, warm hands firmly massaging the tight muscles in the Omega's lower back. He deliberately released slow, steady waves of calming pheromones. "Is that better?" Leo let out a long, shuddering breath, a soft purr vibrating in his chest as he leaned his head back against William's shoulder. "Much better. God, I feel like a stranded whale. I don't know how I'm going to get this baby out of me. They're too big. You made them too big." William chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound that made Leo's purr hitch happily. He wrapped his arms around Leo from behind, resting his hands over the massive bump. "Hey, don't blame me. You're the one who eats an entire jar of Sarah's preserved peaches every night. Our pup is just healthy and strong." As if on cue, the baby gave a violent, rolling kick, completely distorting the shape of Leo's stomach. "Oof," Leo gasped, grabbing William's hand. "Did you feel that? They're running out of room in there." "I felt it," William smiled, pressing a tender kiss to the side of Leo's neck. "They're just eager to meet you, baby. To see the incredible Omega who fought the end of the world to keep them safe." Leo turned his head slightly, his sweet scent of jasmine and honey thickening with deep, romantic affection. He met William's lips for a soft, lingering kiss. "I'm just eager for them to meet their alpha. To see the man who built a whole kingdom for us." William's eyes softened, his thumb gently caressing Leo's cheek. "I love you so much, Leo. More than my own life." "I love you too," Leo started, but his words were violently cut off. His eyes widened in sudden, absolute shock. He gripped William's forearm with bone-crushing force, his breathing abruptly stopping. A quiet splash sounded against the waterproof tarp William had smartly placed beneath the blankets a week ago. William froze. The heavy scent of amniotic fluid, laced with the sharp, unmistakable spike of an Omega in labor, filled the room instantly. Leo looked down, then up at William, his lower lip trembling. "Will, my water just broke. Sarah. Marcus." William's voice roared through the walkie-talkie clipped to the bedside table, filled with an alpha's frantic, protective urgency. "It's time. Get the medical kit. Now." William threw the radio down and immediately shifted his full attention back to Leo. He needed to be the rock. He pushed his own panic down, forcing his pheromones to remain steady and soothing. "Okay, baby, okay. Deep breaths. We practiced this," William coaxed, gently helping Leo shift into a more comfortable reclining position amidst the pillows. "You're safe. I'm right here. It hurts, Will," Leo whimpered, his hands clutching his stomach as the first real contraction ripped through him. His knuckles turned white. "Oh God, it hurts so much more than I thought. Breathe with me, Leo. Look at my eyes," William commanded softly, taking both of Leo's hands in his. "In, and out. That's it." The bedroom doors flew open. Sarah rushed in, carrying a massive sterilized medical kit, followed by Marcus holding a stack of clean towels and a basin of hot water. Julian waited respectfully outside in the hallway, standing guard at the door to give them complete privacy while keeping the house secure. "All right, let's see what we're working with," Sarah said calmly, immediately falling into her role as midwife. She quickly washed her hands in the basin and moved to the edge of the bed. "Leo, sweetheart, I need to check how dilated you are." Leo nodded frantically, tears streaming down his face as another contraction hit. "Just, please, get them out, Sarah." For the next 4 hours, the master bedroom became a crucible of pain, love, and absolute devotion. Outside, the blizzard howled against the reinforced glass, but inside, the world was entirely focused on the bed. The contractions grew vicious. Leo was sobbing, completely thrashing against the pillows. His sweet scent had soured with the metallic tang of pain and exhaustion. "I can't," Leo screamed, tossing his head back. "Will, I can't do it. I'm not strong enough." "Yes, you are," William growled softly, climbing onto the bed. He positioned himself behind Leo, pulling the Omega flush against his broad chest, letting Leo rest his full body weight against him. "You are the strongest person I know. You survived the wasteland for this, Leo. You are not giving up now." William pulled his collar to the side, exposing his scent gland. "Bite me, Leo. Take the pain out on me. Do it." As another agonizing contraction ripped through his body, Leo let out a feral, desperate whine and buried his face into William's neck. He clamped his teeth down hard over the alpha's scent gland, breaking the skin. William didn't flinch. He just held his mate tighter, burying his face in Leo's sweat-drenched hair, continuously releasing heavy, comforting cedarwood pheromones straight into Leo's system. "That's it, baby," William whispered fiercely as Leo bit down harder. "I've got you. I've got you. Okay, Leo," Sarah suddenly called out, her voice sharp and focused. "You're fully dilated. The baby's head is right there. On the next contraction, I need you to push with everything you have." Leo let go of William's neck, gasping for air, his eyes wild and exhausted. "Here it comes," Leo sobbed, his body tensing up. "Push, Leo, push," Sarah encouraged. "Come on, sweetheart," William urged, his hands gripping Leo's hips firmly. "Push for me. Push for our pup." Leo let out a raw, guttural scream that echoed through the entire mansion. He pushed with a strength born of pure, primal instinct, his hands gripping William's forearms so tight his fingernails left crescent moon indentations. "Good, good, the head is out," Sarah cheered, her hands expertly guiding the baby. "One more big one, Leo. One more and they're here." Leo fell back against William's chest, panting heavily, his eyes fluttering closed. "Will, I'm so tired. Look at me," William said, his voice cracking with emotion. He leaned over, forcing Leo to open his eyes. "You are one push away from meeting our baby. The baby you protected in the dirt, the cold, and the dark. Bring them into the light, Leo. Bring them home." Leo let out a wet sob, determination reigniting in his eyes. He took a massive, shuddering breath as the final contraction hit. With a scream that tore from the very bottom of his soul, Leo gave one last, monumental push. Suddenly, the pressure vanished. A second of pure, terrifying silence hung in the room. Then, a sharp, angry, and undeniably beautiful cry pierced the air. "Wah!" William's breath hitched. He stared over Leo's shoulder, tears freely spilling down his rugged cheeks. "It's a boy," Sarah laughed, tears in her own eyes as she quickly wiped the screaming, wriggling infant with a warm towel. "You have a beautiful, perfectly healthy baby boy." Leo collapsed entirely against William, sobbing uncontrollably. "He's okay. Will, is he okay?" "He's perfect," William wept, kissing Leo's forehead, his cheeks, his lips. "He's absolutely perfect, baby. You did it." Sarah clamped and cut the umbilical cord, wrapped the screaming newborn in a soft, heated blanket, and gently passed him up toward the head of the bed. William reached out with trembling hands, helping to guide the small bundle onto Leo's bare chest. The moment the baby felt the warmth of his mother's skin and smelled the heavy, intoxicating blend of jasmine, honey, and cedarwood, his cries immediately ceased. He let out a tiny, snuffling sigh and rooted blindly against Leo's chest. Leo stared down at the tiny, red, wrinkled face, completely mesmerized. The baby had a tuft of thick, dark hair exactly like William's. "Oh, my God," Leo whispered, reverently tracing a finger over the baby's impossibly small, perfect cheek. "He's beautiful." William wrapped his large arms around both of them, enclosing his family in a protective, unbreakable sphere. He pressed his face close to the baby's head, taking in the scent of milk and pure, innocent life. "We survived," William said softly, his voice thick with overwhelming gratitude. He looked at Leo, his eyes shining with absolute worship. "You saved us, Leo." Hours later, the bedroom had been cleaned, and the chaos had settled into a profound, tranquil peace. Sarah, Marcus, and Julian had quietly withdrawn, leaving the new family alone. The only light in the room came from the roaring fireplace, casting dancing golden shadows across the walls. Leo was lying on his side, his eyes heavy with exhaustion but shining with pure joy. Tucked safely against his chest, nursing quietly, was their son. William was lying right next to them, his head propped on his hand, simply watching them. He looked like a man who had found the Holy Grail. He couldn't look away. "What are we going to name him?" Leo asked softly, his fingers gently brushing the fine, dark hair on the baby's head. William reached out, letting the baby's incredibly tiny fingers wrap tightly around his thick index finger. The strength of the grip made William smile. "Hope," William suggested softly. Leo chuckled, a tired, melodic sound. "We are not naming our son Hope, Will. That's a terrible name for a boy." "I don't mean literally," William laughed quietly. He thought for a moment, his eyes drifting to the frost-covered window, thinking of the nightmare world outside, and then back to the absolute paradise in his bed. Arthur, William said finally. It means bear. Strong and courageous. Because he comes from the strongest Omega I've ever known. Leo smiled, his eyes welling up with fresh tears. He looked down at the nursing baby. Arthur. Arthur, my brave little bear. Arthur let out a soft, milky sigh, entirely content in the safety of his mother's arms. I love you, William, Leo whispered, shifting closer so their foreheads touched over the baby. Thank you for finding me. I would have searched until the end of time, William vowed, kissing Leo deeply, pouring all of his devotion into the touch. You are my heart, Leo. You and Arthur. And as long as I have breath in my lungs, the monsters will never, ever reach you. Outside, the apocalyptic winter raged on. But inside the walls of the sanctuary, surrounded by the scent of cedarwood, jasmine, and new life, their happily ever after had just begun.